Hello, world. Good now, and welcome to BetaCodex Live on this day of this month in this time. And whenever you're watching it, will be that time for you. My name is Ryan Erickson. I am here with the inimitable Niels Flagging on the right side of your screen. Hello, Niels.
Hello,
And
Ryan. Good to see you again.
it is good to see you as always. We have such a fun, unpredictable, and surprising time each time we get together. We don't know how this thing's going to go.
True, and we didn't really talk since our last episode. We didn't. Sometimes we talk. We meet in between these sessions, but this time I think we didn't have much contact really.
No, I just kind of put it out there, and you like my graphics, so that's good. And
Yeah. I found it really nice. Of course, I love the reference to Dune.
Yeah.
In the cover design. I read all the Dune books when I was not sure 16 or maybe 18.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. So I'm a big fan, and of course seeing these movies now done so stylishly, it's thrilling. You've seen the two movies as well, right?
Oh yes, oh of course, and I much appreciate the production design of. Well, that's a whole issue, a whole different issue. I mean, the quality of the script and the seriousness of it is there.
Yes.
I do have a soft spot in my heart for the David Lynch version back in '84. Did you ever see the '84?
Sure.
Yeah,
With
I mean,
Sting.
with Sting and so the dialogue and the plot was totally shoved, two long movies into like an hour and a half.
Yes.
So that was crap. But the production design was just so vibrant and so just in your face. I felt that was much more to what was going on in my head than the Denis Villeneuve version, but artistically, I can't fault Denis version at all because
Yeah, I think the new version is fantastic, really. All the aesthetics, the beauty of the dialogues, and so it's wonderful.
Yeah, really authentic. And so the topic of the day, and the topic I thought we've talked around it a few times. I don't think we ever had it in an episode. This idea of fear in beta organizations. That's one thing. It's in the title of the episode was fear is the mind killer. Well, in beta, there's nothing to fear, and in a beta organization, there's nothing to fear. Well,
yes,
in an alpha organization, well, you can count the fears in numerous ways. And the one fear that comes to mind for me is just that annual fear performance evaluation. Am I good enough? Am I thinking selfishly, am I good enough? And of course, there's the managerial. Did I make my targets? I did make my targets, maybe. Or I gotta lie about this, that I really did this, but this project is really going down the crapper. But I'm going to tell them it's okay, and I'm afraid that I'm going to be found out. So, and we could tell. I'm sure you could tell some stories about your time in Alpha World back in the history of your life. But why is there no fear in a beta organization where there is fear in alpha? What makes it fearless?
Oh, brilliant. Well put.
The fearless organization.
I think it's worth repeating what you just said, that alpha organizations are kind of built on fear, made by fear. It is management by fear, right? The whole hierarchical over-accentuation of hierarchy. It is in essence an exercise in intimidation and coercion and dysfunctional relationships and blaming, of course. So I think there's no escape of fear. I mean, people it's like the Stockholm syndrome thing. If people feel well in an alpha organization, really, the pride of moving up the corporate ladder. But then there is the fear of degradation in meetings or hierarchically or positionally. So I think there's so much fear in alpha that I think most people find it hard to imagine that there is something beyond that, a different thing is possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that true self-organization can be unleashed. That organizational leadership without fear can is possible. People
Yeah.
kind of assume naturally that must result in chaos and anarchy, right? And that's a fear of beta that is very common, I think.
Yeah, well,
If it's a real fear, at least those are narratives that are common.
well, and it's fear of, well, lack of control, right? So if we get rid of this, yeah, I know I don't like being controlled, or I get mad at the boss sometimes because I have to do what the boss says, or else, dun dun dun, or else, or else what? Or else you'll be outed, you'll be gone. We're gonna fire you. And well, but okay, but the boss keeps control that the systems we have accountability to the boss, and the boss makes sure we're okay, and all right. But when you take that stuff away, and when a small team is accountable to each other, then wow, I don't know how do I operate. Maybe that's there. I mean, I've been talking about it with you for the last 2 years, so it kind of feels natural to me. And I wonder, well, there really is nothing to be afraid of. If I care about you, if we're here working on this stuff together, why would I fear you? And we're working together.
Yeah,
So
I mean, there's fear of being afraid. There's fear of fear, of course, and
yeah.
that comes into the way of beta transformation. Often, I think fear of losing control, fear of anarchy, and so on, which is groundless, spaceless, but which is why 15 years ago or so, when I wrote my third book, I put in a chapter on love for the first time in that book, which was
Oh,
considered
really?
pretty. My publisher, everybody commented it that this might be a little too much, to use the word
Definitely.
in a business book. But the question is, what is the opposite of fear? If command control is organizing by fear, then beta or decentralization and coherent self-organization and organizational democracy must be organizing by love. And of course, the idea comes partially, at least, from Southwest Airlines, right, which has this knack of calling their own model love, and they have the index, their index on the New York Stock Exchange. It's LUV. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Southwest Airlines has LUV as the stock marketing index forever, right? Since the 70s.
Wow.
So, and that I think is a good contrast, to say Taylorism, command and control is management by fear, and beta is management, if you want to call it like that, by love. Makes total sense, I think. Which doesn't mean that everybody's happy, and it's not the same as sex, of course, right? We have to distinguish those things, right?
Totally
Love
different.
means, of course, being close.
I am so flabbergasted that was. I must see this book. Only in
Ah, you
German?
didn't know
Yes.
it?
I
You
didn't
didn't
know
know?
it.
Okay.
No, because
There's a great
I
book.
taught.
There's a great book by Herb Kelleher. It was a huge bestseller in the 1990s. I think it's called
No problem.
Nuts. Get a used copy. I think you get it for $1 probably in the
Well,
United
but I'm
States.
talking about your book that you mentioned that.
My book. Yeah.
Yes, your book. So
Yeah, kind of when the Southwest Airlines case, it got me thinking, how to frame that, and if that was an essential part, or part of this, also this contrasting language-wise and framing-wise of which is a topic that we discussed in our last episode, right? Social density. That's very related to this, to the absence of fear. Yeah. Which doesn't mean that you cannot be afraid of something. Of course, each of us is afraid of something, right? Personally, privately, and so on. Doesn't matter. But in an organization, at work, with fear shouldn't be an additional topic, right?
No, well, we've, as human beings, we are no longer in the Serengeti. running from tigers and with the fear of actual death at all times, and that the survival rate is pretty high now, 80 plus years for those of us Homo sapiens. And so what is there to be so afraid of, comparatively to thousands of years ago? And the thing that comes to mind is that because, as I mean, the criticism of capitalist market societies, acquisition, and I'm going to acquire stuff, and then this idea of a fear of loss. I'm afraid of losing what I have, as opposed to a potential for gain. And
yeah.
And that I think is one thing that comes up in transformation. Well, what do I have? I have power, I have status, I'm affiliated with folks that are the same level. I live in this new neighborhood. I have all these things that, if I'm afraid of that risk because I don't know of what might happen if we say to release one's control and say what's in it for me. And that's, I don't know. I'm blind to that a little bit because, again, reading into and believing so much in that why wouldn't you want to say as a sponsor that I'm okay with losing a little bit of power if the folks around me are loving each other.
I think I think we talked about that in another occasion. That fear of loss of control. I do not think that intelligent managers, executives, or company owners would have that. I do not believe it's a thing. It's more of a prejudice, right? People at the top want power and so. But no. One of the things that yep.
Good. Well, so then, in this, I think, boy, we're saying all these things that have come up before, but the idea that there are folks maybe in middle management who are serving, they have power over folks here, and then they're under here, and that they don't know where they stand. They have to compete, right?
Yes.
And that maybe that competitive fear that I have to fear or I will lose. Maybe the folks in the echelons of authority have more leeway, and that you don't encounter that. But in the there are some no-nos in the middle management ranks who maybe they're saying no because they're fearing.
They don't fear. I think. Yeah, that's a good point. I don't think that the no-nos, people who are against whatever it is, that beta is. I do not think they are. First of all, they are not against beta. Usually, they have a self-interest for something that they wouldn't want to protect. To protect. Those people exist. They are very rare. So this no kind of person, very rare, and I do not think they are usually driven by fear. They're driven by self-interest, which is slightly different, right? And I mean, every organization must, like every society, every group, every social group, every initiative, or any political party or political movement as well, depends on people, overcoming their self-interest in the interest of the whole, of the movement.
Something bigger than yourself.
Yes. And some people are not willing to overcome the selfishness, so to speak. I call these type, we discussed this a couple of times. I call them assholes. who join an organization but cannot subdue their self-interest by and large. I mean, you can still have a career interest, of course, but in the normal, if you work for a hospital as a doctor, you should have an interest in that, having the hospital or the station or the emergency room working, and not propelling your career and filling in your career sheets,
your credentials. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's okay to have that too, but it must be, combined, and in principle, the patient's interest, for example, must come first. That's why there's an oath in that profession, which I think is a great thing. Yeah, more professions should have.
But there's not a consultant's oath. Not a management
consultant. And no agile coaches oath, and no product owner oath, and no exactly. We should have that. We've discussed ethics here a couple of times. I believe that ethics we should recruit for ethics and not for skill. That's today I read another article that I hated on agility and so on. It was all upside down and horrible, and the skill matrices for product owners came up in that article as the number one recommendation what to do, which is bullshit. I mean, the problem with product owners or product management or whatever it is not skill or skill matrix, and it has nothing to do with that. Integrity is the thing. I think
integrity and awareness of one's domain, humility. I think that's important to know.
I don't have that. But could be, let's assume that I do not have humility. Couldn't I be? No, I think humility. No, it's overrated. Humility. Humble people and sad people, and they're not so humble. This is one thing I have to tell this story. I just wanted to. Sure. Minutes ago, you made me think of that. On Monday and Tuesday, I spent at a client here in Germany, and I did an impulse session. It's very early in the open space beta process, so we usually do an impulse session at that point. This time I did it, so there were like 50 people present in the room. And we had this kind of doubts coming up, of course. Can this work? And so kind of a related topic to what we're discussing here. And I think we had some hints at this topic of should we be afraid of beta or not, or how is this, how the relationship between us and alpha and us and beta. And I said one very good guideline for being part of a beta organization is DBAA. Just that, DBAA. Don't be an asshole. It's almost enough. Just don't be an asshole. In an alpha organization, it's totally okay to be an asshole. And in a beta organization, it doesn't work. You have to. Don't be an asshole. You don't have to be good. You don't have to be humble. Don't be charismatic. You don't have to be extroverted. All that's nonsense. Just don't be an asshole. It's very important. That kind of suck. I love that. It was. They had a big.
Don't be an asshole.
It's true. Essentially, it's true. The fear thing also is accepted assholism. A power over, as Mary Parker Follett conceived it. That's a big part in the sickness of alpha organization. Alpha organizations are sick.
Well, and it's rewarded. I think that behavior is rewarded. That you can get your numbers. You can hit your nut.
Behavior.
Yes. Musk behavior.
The Trump behavior. That's accepted. This is you're a flyer, bullshitting around, and being a bully, and all that kind of shit. And there's of course the sexual harassment and the chauvinism.
Well,
all that is up to a certain point accepted and rewarded, and the selfishness, the over accentuated individualism. None of that is good for organizations, for people, for their well-being.
It's the hero idea, the great man theory, and that it's okay. I mean, even Steve Jobs. We think about Steve Jobs. He was an incorrigible asshole.
Apparently, yes, charismatic asshole.
Exactly. Sometimes
it seems that he could control it towards the end of his life. I said I doubt. I think I'm not a big fan, but so I didn't read the biographies also. But he certainly had an occasional asshole. He let it take the reign.
But the DBAA rule again, I think that's a great. And we're talking about why is it?
That's what I always tell people. If you want to be a good person, you don't have to be good. Just don't be an asshole. Don't even attempt. Because how can I be good? It's very hard. For example, today I walked down the street, a very sunny day, and I don't have to help anybody crossing the street if nobody's in need of needing my help, But at least I could look at people, I could smile occasionally if it's not awkward, just don't be an asshole. That's the
Yeah.
only thing that's necessary. And if a situation comes up, don't be an asshole, so yeah, it doesn't take much, and it's so often forgotten. I think interestingly, it's a big topic in the US right now, right? We follow the campaign, let's say the Democratic Congress, which is running right now, today still, and the political shift that is taking place, the social political dynamics that are taking place now. I think it's very interesting that for the first time in history, Republicans are speaking at the Democratic Convention.
I think
That's so decent. It's a very decent act. How they do that they are welcomed in the way, what they say, what kind of quality. We take political sidesteps occasionally and reflect on politics. But didn't you notice that? Don't you see that? Don't you accompany that, Ryan?
I haven't. We've talked about this privately. I'm okay to talk about publicly. I have very little faith in federal politics. I am much more of a decentralized local politics person and pay attention to those dynamics more than I do the federal side of things. Because I think
sure. But now it's time to recognize that there is a shift of tides going on right now. Right now, don't you see that?
I do see the shift of tides in terms of the I was gonna say narrative, the narrative, the story that's being told, and the story that's being told.
I think it's much more. I think it's much more, because all this doom and gloom vision that Trump and his MAGA movement have perpetuated. They are like, how are these people in Dune?
The Harkonnens.
The Harkonnens,
It's
exactly.
like Baron Harkonnen.
MAGA is basically a Harkonnen movement. All this ugly bestiality, the hate, and so now Democrats and Republicans that are both decent and that want to accomplish. And you are right. Interestingly, those people speaking up, most of them seem to have been governors, or I saw today something by vice governor of Georgia in 2020, and local politicians, Republican mayors and so on, and they speak up about how extremists, let's say, have overtaken the Republican Party, and they say that on the Congress of the Deming. I think that's wonderful, and without saying, "Oh, I might leave the Republicans for that." No, they say, "We want to repair the Republicans, and thank you, sisters and brothers of the Democratic Party, that you give us the opportunity to, address this here." It's a wonderful, that's exactly the beta attitude, I would say. No, I think it's a beautiful thing. And 4 weeks or so ago, nobody would have thought of that possible. It's an immense shift in possibility. I wonder who made that happen. People like this Pritzker, J.D. Pritzker, or what's his name?
Yeah,
no,
Pritzker.
J.D. Vance. The other Pritzker.
J.D. Vance is the.
That's the other guy. No,
Pritzker,
the guy from Chicago.
Illinois. Yeah.
Yeah. He must have played a role in this as well. I think there's a whole new perspective opening up in the United States, and I think that's very. We cannot know how that will play out. What will happen in the election, and for now, maybe it doesn't matter so much. But there's a shift in perception and possibility. No,
I will agree that there is more possibility. That there's a shift. That there's less doom and gloom. I say there's a lot more hope in the Democratic Party now than there was certainly several.
Yeah, but not only in the Democratic Party. If you look at the Lincoln Project, for example, do you take a look at that occasionally on Twitter?
I've not looked at them for a long time. They've been discredited in certain circles, so I hadn't.
Okay.
I hadn't looked into them necessarily. Okay. Recently.
Okay, we have to compare our sources.
No, you're trying to get me to care about federal politics, and I don't.
Hate environment. Yeah. To discredit others is very easy, but to build bridges, and that's what I was talking about. I wasn't talking about we do not have to agree on the politics of Kamala Harris and so on. Yeah. There's no need for that. But I think the the ability to think politics together, to make
Yes.
that politics is not a binary thing and
Well,
doesn't need to be a fight between parties and so on. We have the same challenges in other similar and unsimilar challenges in German politics, for example. France has its own worries right now with that, but the power to build alliances around political initiatives, that's something that got lost over the last 10 years or so, maybe, in the United States. So it's to the possibility to rebuild that in a way. I think that's very, very very inspiring.
And I think this also gets down into the idea of an alpha organization being this kind of remote control thing, where the leader is way up here and spouting this, that, and the other, but everyone else just needs to believe what I say because I'm up here and believe I'm a good person. Whether or not I am or not, you don't know because I'm blah 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 blah.
Yes.
And then those of you in the trenches can do whatever you do as long as you do what I say.
Yes.
But in a beta organization, this is what draws me to it, is that I am here with you, Niels. We are here. I'm going to listen to you talk, and I expect that because we are adults and we don't have anyone else controlling us, that you and I are going to listen to each other. We may not agree, but we will come to some kind of integration of who we are and how we are in this moment, in this sphere of activity, to do this thing. Yeah. And I think that is my hope for what the polity will become, in that I want to engage with folks who might not necessarily believe what I believe about education or about environmental concerns or about gender equity or something like that. I want to have those conversations, and I want to have those conversations with others because, we here in our community, the actual community where we plant our feet and our asses, that we live together here. We travel on the same roads, we go to the same restaurants, and we have to live with each other. Trump and Vance and Harris and whoever, they're not stepping into our restaurants and telling us what to do or how to eat or what to do. That's up to the people in the room on the floor. And that's what I think of when I think of a beta organization, and that kind of decentralized people in relationship with each other who are exerting shared control over something they care about and connected with purpose, as opposed to being controlled by some steering force. Right.
Yes.
So that's the parallel that I draw, not necessarily, in the to federalize with that federal control. Maybe that's it to talk about.
One thing I just thought about while you were talking is I think you kind of alluded to the almost faddish concept of psychological safety.
Oh yeah,
everybody talks about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which Amy Edmondson, who coined the term, of course, related that specifically to teams, right? So within teams, we should create psychological safety, which is interesting, I think, in its mirroring of, for example, Scrum, which is a team concept, and now we have psychological safety as a team concept. So we want to fix teams because this is my nagging the nagging suspicion that I have against this kind of concept. I think these concepts are developed, psychological safety, are developed out of despair or disbelief that the fearless organization can be created, that it is possible to create an organization that's fundamentally, by principle, free of fear, which doesn't mean that I do not carry my fears around in the organization and at work as well. Fear of career.
But I show compassion for you. I show compassion for you. If you have fears, and if you express them, I'm compassionate about them. I think the whole psychological safety thing, I think, is paternalistic. I think it's paternalistic because it said, who is responsible for creating that condition of psychological
Exactly.
safety? Well, of course, it's the person who is out here on the top and said, now you have a safe environment. Go do what I wish, as opposed to, we're here, we're out in the wilderness, we're at the bank branch, and this is our branch. We control our P&L, and that it's on us together. So if don't bullshit me about what's happening over there. And we have to have that conversation, because there's no one else who's going to force us to, because we have to be with it. So.
Yes, I think that's a brilliant point you just made, that ultimately that concept is paternalistic. Yeah.
In psychological safety, it's an output. It's a lagging. It's a lagging. If you want to measure it, well, okay, fine. Bake in some measurements about.
It's like culture and stuff, right? Or profitability, you cannot, or client satisfaction, you cannot make it. And over discussing it is ridiculous. Like over discussing culture, which is these are shadows of an organization, right? Yeah. Well, it's, I think it's one of those reflexes of learned helplessness. We perceive the learned helplessness in organizations, in teams, everywhere, in work, and then we want to make leaders responsible to produce.
So what's the opposite? What is the opposite of learned helplessness? I forget what in the book. I forget what the opposite of that is.
The opposite,
just being an intelligent and caring human being.
Don't be an asshole.
Being a mature human. Don't be an asshole.
The opposite is always don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
Because learned helplessness is to have given up on the hope. And what's the opposite? Social density, healthy relations. Equity, power with, self-organization, organization, democracy. Those are all opposites of learned helplessness.
Because it's dependency, right? So I'm learning to be dependent on someone else.
Theory Y-ness, to accept everyone's theory Y essence, core, and human nature, and to get rid of. I think this learned helplessness thing, it's always connected, and the fear in the organization is always connected with this. Ultimately, at the end, I'm alone. Nobody, everybody takes care of themselves, and there are statistics. Today, I read some statistics, I think from America, that 72% or so of people think that they have something beyond the self-interest, but only 30%, only of 30% of the other people we think that they have something beyond.
I'm not the asshole. They're the asshole.
Exactly. Everybody else is an asshole. We cannot trust them. It's like my personal conspiracy theory. Everybody's bad, but that's a very common thing, right? Everybody's bad. That's what Ozark, these TV shows. In Montana, the thing. I couldn't see more than 2.
You didn't finish Ozark?
Yosemite.
That one, I hadn't seen that one.
It's hopeless. It's so doomed. It's so no perspective. No life worth living. They should all kill themselves and let the horses roam freely, and the cows, the cattle.
It sounds like a depressing show.
Very depressing, I think. And Ozark and House of Cards.
Very cynical.
There's so many of these shows where everything is evil, and so it's kind of a philosophy, right? That I'm alone, nobody cares. I care about others, but no others are.
Nobody cares about me.
That's learned helplessness as well, I think.
So I'd be remiss if I didn't bring the pink book into this.
Yeah, interesting. I do not know what you want to quote from it. I'm curious.
I found three. Good. Just right off the bat. Good. One from W. Edwards Deming. What would Deming do in an organization?
Yes, I edited that book last year. I should know every quote in it by heart, but of course I forget occasionally. There is a lot of in that book about joy, but about fear. Okay, targets, right?
There's a bunch about joy too. I debated whether we would use this to kind of flip it to talk about joy, and now, Oh my God, I'm going to put a love episode out there now. I'm going to definitely do that.
Good.
So
Good.
the Deming quote,
Yes.
fear takes a horrible toll. Fear is all around, robbing people of their pride, hurting them, robbing them of a chance to contribute to the company. It is unbelievable what happens when you unloose fear. I think that unloosing
Wow.
thing, that is
Wow.
driving fear
Picked
out.
that well. Yes. So
Picked a good one.
in Deming's mind, the opposite of fear is pride of work, pride at work, right? Pride of craftsmanship and joy,
Yeah.
as we'll see in other quotes. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, and that was kind of there was one I think that came all near to that around that all a person needs to experience joy at that work, just know that work is important, is to feel that what they're doing matters, right?
Yes. Yes.
Meaningfulness.
The relevance of my work. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Is there
So
another
this
one here?
oh there's two more. The second
Okay.
one is, this kind of gets alphabet. Management by numerical goal is an attempt to manage without knowledge of what to do, and in fact is usually management by fear.
Brilliant.
So this management by numbers is management by fear.
That's why OKRs are evil. Full stop, period. And right? So numerical goals are an expression of an absence of understanding of value creation and a tool or an instrument of driving fear into the organization, right? It's just
better hit
brilliant.
your OKRs.
Yes, all fixed targets, budgets, quotas, and shit.
Yeah. And the third quote is, where there is fear, you do not get honest figures. I think I brought that up there. It's like, I'm afraid to be. Oh, what is that principle? Oh, it looks like principle number 5, transparency.
And that is so. I mean, some people understand that Deming is a statistics guy, so he should say something in many people's minds. Deming should say something like, "But the numbers are objective." Yeah, and he says the opposite. If you have in the presence of fear, you don't even get good numbers. You get crappy.
You get lies. You get lies.
So you cannot believe even in statistics and the accounting numbers, because if you have fear, in the presence of fear, even the numbers get screwed, which is, of course, a very fabulous, very systemic insight, right?
Yeah, I was trying to find the quote about driving out fear, and I couldn't find that one in time. But yeah, so it's very interesting again that the idea of
principles. How are they called?
The system of profound knowledge.
Yes, there is a principle that's about driving out certain things, but I'm not sure if fear is mentioned there.
Well, I have the book right here, so I will take a look into it.
Yeah, there's the one against numbers, fixed numbers, and
well, here it is. Principle number 8 of drive out fear.
I knew it.
See, you edited the book. You chose the quotes. Drive out fear so that everyone.
And I remember some of it. Yes, it's all. Everything is there in that tiny book. Hold it up again, please. It's a very pretty book. What would Deming do? Yes, published by BetaCodex Press, edited by Niels Pfleging. Yes, last year.
Yes,
very
well. Now, this is maybe not be on the fear topic, but something that came up in the network recently was talking about bringing external authors to BetaCodex Press. Is that something you would like to say something about, or just that's an invitation? Now you want to hear from folks who've got books. Don't be afraid. No, don't be afraid.
Yes, I fear that there might be some fear out there among people, some hesitation of getting in touch and suggesting publication projects. I had, of course, over the time, I had a couple of people reaching out to me and talking about their book projects. The most recent one, I think, was 6 months or so ago. Somebody from California, from Canada, I think. Very nice guy. So I asked him, okay, he mentioned that he had already Something like I have the manuscript half ready. So I said, okay, send it over to me. We had a wonderful conversation, 60 minutes, 75 minutes or so conversation about the manuscript. I took a good look.
You took a look at it,
Yeah, and it was quite nice. It wasn't ready yet, and it might still, materialize as something for BetaCodex Press. But I think it was good stuff. Something like a quasi dictionary of self-organization concepts. Very interesting stuff with illustrations. So it wasn't quite there. I think it wasn't half. In my mind, it wasn't half ready, but it was like good points and quite a few pages written already. So nice.
Well, I'm not giving my manuscript to you until I have one. First of all,
no, it's. I always recommend to if you Ryan, for example, would have a concept in mind, a structure, maybe about organizational musicianship or something. Share it with somebody else who understands the publishing process early on. That's always my recommendation, regardless of whom you want to publish with. Write up an expose, as it's called, and a structure, a little bit about the book as you envision it. Who would it be for? What kind of format should it have? And so on. And then write a chapter or two, maybe 10, 20 pages, and share it with somebody from the publishing side. That's always the recommendation, because that's the professional way to approach publishing, right? Not write the book to the end and then share it with somebody, but conceive it, write an expose, write some test chapters.
Get some feedback that you're writing the correct book. That you're writing.
Yes, that and sense. Of course, publishers then might purchase the ticket, so to speak. Place a bet on that book. That's how business book writing works. Yeah. So with the expose and some test pages, you could approach any publisher and sell the book, and then you write it. That's the professional way of doing that. Yeah. And so yes, that's so I sometimes get my hands on people's manuscripts. And the idea of BetaCodex Press was always that it is a self-publishing platform for me in a way. But of course, Silke also publishes with BetaCodex Publishing, BetaCodex Press, and other authors should do so as well. I can only recommend. The idea is to have something like an author's press, an author's publisher. Publishers publishing with each other, for each other, and helping each other.
I was going to say something like federalization or something like that.
Sure. And also peerization, right? A peer thing, just like what Apple Records was for the Beatles and so on. There are many projects like that, also in the publishing market. So this is by no means a totally new thing, but in the business book market, there aren't so many concepts around like that. So, and the idea, of course, is to use to make books that are pretty and beautiful. That are designed, that are not necessarily hardcover. I think hardcover should be more the exception than the rule, for environmental reasons, for practical reasons, and also I think it shouldn't be such a big thing, hardcover. I like it, of course. I like hardcover books, but I think the most important thing in books today is that they are colorful, that they are well designed, not just text, that they are inviting, that they offer something beyond the ebook, beyond what you have on the Kindle.
They're enjoyable to read.
To read, and yes, the idea is that if you are up to if anybody here is up to writing a book, conceiving a book on beta-related organizational topics, let's exchange ideas. Let's see if we can make it work together, and do it with peers.
Yes, with each other, for each other, because there's nothing to fear.
Exactly.
There's nothing to fear. There's only love.
You held up the book. This was an idea. I took it from idea to market in 2 months, I think.
2 months from idea to market.
Yeah. It was crazy. It was like a night fever thing. And then it wasn't the first edition wasn't very good. Not sure which edition you have, so I had to rework it. Then I did it too fast, so I missed out on the thing that every quote should have the source indicated. I didn't do that in the first edition. Not sure.
Well, so then this must be the second edition because there are the references.
There should be a letter in a few letters on the lower part of the page on the bottom,
drastic
indicating
changes.
the source, and then the source is indicated in the back, so you can look up where this comes from. Yeah. So I've been a little bit sloppy, maybe scientifically speaking, a little bit sloppy with the first version. I had to make some improvements, so that took another week. Already when I started the Drucker book of quotes, that I had already learned the decent way.
You'd learn from the pink book. So.
Yeah. That was much faster. The Drucker book, I did it very fast.
Yeah. Well, I mean again in book. I mean that isn't necessarily the topic, but it kind of is because Organized for Complexity. You have it has come out in Spanish now. Yes.
Yes, everywhere in the world it's now available. Organized for Complexity is now available in Spanish. Organizar para la complejidad. It was before that. It was only available in Spanish in Peru, and now available everywhere in Latin America and in Spain and the rest of the world. Everybody where people might speak Spanish in Norway or the United States, they can now get the book in Spanish. And translation of Open Space Beta into Spanish is underway. I learned today. Yeah.
Wow.
Last week.
From the Argentinian contingent?
Yes. Argentina is they are very driven, I must say. Yeah.
And they may have a version of our little program here, right? BetaCodex en vivo.
Yes, we started that today. Yes. Today we recorded the first official episode of BetaCodex live in Spanish. So that will go online tomorrow, I think.
Absolutely.
We still didn't do it live because of the setup stuff, but yeah, it will still be live.
They got it going. So there's all this stuff is happening, and what better example that there is no fear in beta?
There is no fear in beta. I mean, I think one worry that people might have about beta is that it isn't as commercial as other things, other movements are, the tools are, and so on. It may not look as commercial, at least, and I think some people are hesitant of joining because. Not sure. They might think that not enough people are drumming the drums for it. Not sure.
Is it the Rogers curve? I think that there was talking about. There's this idea that there's the early adopters, that there are folks who are willing to seek the new.
After 16 years, we are still.
Hey man, we've been in industrial age hierarchy for 150. So there you go.
Yeah.
Learned helplessness. So unlearning helplessness.
Yes,
how do you unlearn your helplessness?
Most consultants, trainers, coaches need to relearn helpfulness as well, or hopefulness as well. And yes, maybe too many are in a state of depression, consciously or not. And it's time to open up to the possibilities. A month ago, everybody said, "Oh, Kamala Harris as a presidential candidate, that cannot work out." And now it's all the rage.
There she is.
So. I think rightfully so. So yes, everything is possible. Anything can happen. The winds change.
So you're throwing out songs here. So the winds have changed. That was a big one. That's from back in the day.
By the Scorpions, which are from my hometown.
Well, there you go. Is it anything can happen? Actually, that's a quote from a Rush tune. That's
I know a song by Bruce Cockburn by that name. Anything can happen.
Anything can happen. And of course, from probably one of my favorite rock bands, yes, there is It Can Happen.
It can happen to you. It can happen to me. You mean that one?
It can happen to everyone eventually. Yes, indeed.
Wonderful.
Yes, wonderful album, wonderful song. So how far are we away from fear at this point? This is fearless. We are being fearless and going beyond fear.
Totally. We are
into this
making
place.
fools of ourselves if necessary and if unnecessary. And that's the state of fearlessness. That's delightful. It's just delight. It's the human capability of making fools of themselves.
And so I would be remiss if I didn't, again, bringing back fear is the mind killer. And then I think there's another quote that I heard that got me to, that gets into the core of what are you really afraid of? What are human beings? And you touched on it too, this idea of being outcast, being shamed. I'm afraid that if I make a mistake, someone's going to shame me and I'm going to be this pariah. So I think that is behind a lot of stuff. So why would I? What if I say this project is yellow instead of green, then I'm going to have the spotlight shined on me, and I'm going to be shamed into, oh, you must do whatever is possible to take that project from green to half green, from yellow to half green, half yellow, or from all that kind of stuff. And so that's that. If one is to release themselves from the fear of shame, there's love can happen. Love can happen if we don't fear shame. So. All right.
If I can make a movie recommendation.
Oh, please.
One movie that came to mind, not sure if you know it, from 1999. It was produced by MTV Studios. I think the first movie production that they kind of supported. The movie is called Election, with Reese Witherspoon in the.
Oh, and Matthew Broderick, yes.
And Matthew Broderick.
Tracy Flick. That was the Tracy Flick character.
Yes. Oh, you know it well. Okay.
Oh, that's been a long time. I couldn't say a whit about the plot. But what has you bringing that into? Is it the current political season, or
about fear and yeah, it's the whole movie. It's brilliant that you know everything about it. That you even know the main character's name, Tracy Flick.
I'm a trivia guy.
That's great.
I do have a bit of trivia
because the movie is told from the by the Matthew Broderick character, right? And like I remember it all started with the election thing and so, and I think that is because I think I remembered that movie in particular because I think, of course, we all have our fears. We are afraid of being shamed and outcast and so on. And of course, many of these fears are related to actual experiences that we had in school.
Trauma
and being bullied and whatever the situation, individual situation might have been. Everybody has experienced fear at school, right? Because we are so sensitive to it. And I think that that movie, it is a hilarious movie about what happens at school, the dynamics and the characters and the archetypes and how stupidly everyone behaves, and that we shouldn't be so afraid of everything. I think it's a wonderful movie about that.
Yeah. Oh God, the other two fear movies, I don't know that they necessarily have a lot to do with fear. One was Cape Fear. One was Cape Fear, the one with Robert De Niro. And
Cape Fear, I hated that movie. I saw it, and I remember seeing it in the theater, and I just hated it. I think it was the most stupid movie that Robert De Niro had done until this point.
It's a bit over the top.
The deer hunting thing, that's a movie about fear, I think. The Deer Hunter with Robert De Niro. Do you know it?
John Voight. John Voight.
Yes. I think John Voight is in it, and it's the one with the Russian roulette in Vietnam.
Oof. Yeesh.
The Deer Hunter, I think. It's with the Deer Hunter, 1978. Who else?
No, I was thinking
Christopher Walken, of course. Christopher Walken, and the leading female leading role is, of course, Meryl Streep. Yeah, that's a great movie about fear.
There you go.
Aren't all of Robert De Niro's movies about fear?
Not
sure.
Oh, Goodfellas. Oh, Goodfellas. Please tell me you like Goodfellas.
Yes, of course. I love all the mafia movies. Oh yeah,
Goodfellas is good. The other, I don't know if we ever talked.
I saw The Village. That's a movie about fear. The Village by M. Night
Shyamalan. M. Night Shyamalan.
That's a movie about fear.
So the other thing, I'd not seen the movie or even read the book, but the title interests me. Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Sure.
One about Hunter Thompson. I said Fear and Loathing of Lost Wages was what I said. Fear and Loathing of Lost Wages is what happens in alpha organizations. So.
Good.
Wow.
Excellent.
I am excellent. Very, very fun. We talked a decent amount about fear. We talked a bit about the BetaCodex Press, and we had our little movie discussion.
Yes, so BetaCodex Press. There's a website, www.betacodexpress.com. There you find more about it. So don't be afraid. Get in touch about possible book or publication or product ideas that you might have.
Anything and everything. So, all right, I'm going to say we can say goodbye together to those folks. Thank you for the precious gift of your time and attention, and don't be an asshole.